can you take us back slightly? So Cincinnati, one of the reasons why there was a push to put Cincinnati into the MLS was due to the success of their A-League team, right?
Yeah, that's right. FC Cincinnati is not a super old club. I mean, I think it's like 5 or 6 years total in tenure, but in their USL days, they were selling out the Nippert Stadium. They were getting 25 to 30,000 fans for just average USL games, which was blowing some MLS attendance out of the water. So really, it was that's a good question, Dave, because it sort of shows the commitment of the Cincinnati fans supporting the club from day one.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the things is, like, once teams start winning, it's a hell of a lot easier to get on that bandwagon. So it'll be interesting. Like, I mean, as there's hopefully parity in the MLS, which there actually has been. If you look at the winners, there's been a lot of different teams that have won the MLS Cup and had different types of successes. And we certainly got to experience that here in Atlanta in 2018. The energy of soccer being shared in these cities. I think, to me, it's kind of just a fascinating thing. As I was saying, like, I'm a fan of the MLS, not because it's the best league in the world. It's probably number 15 or 20 or further, if people want to argue. I don't know. But it's not the best, but it's our league. And the thing is it could rapidly move up that ladder wherever you rank it pretty quickly, because, follow the money. And if there is coaches that are coming here that are like, well-known names that, and you got David Beckham in Miami, it's a pretty interesting kind of, I think, part of the hockey stick that's happening. And, Atlanta United obviously is a part of that, but I just, to me, it's fascinating because soccer really does feel like it's exploding in the US, and the MLS finally has found its roots. Unfortunately, COVID hasn't helped 2020 in kind of the path that they're on. But
one of the things that we're not gonna touch upon here, of course, is sort of promotion and relegation. And one of the arguments for that has always been teams like Cincinnati. And you say, all right, well, they have the attendance, so they can actually afford to buy a few players, and they can win the lower league, and they deserve a chance to play in MLS because of that.
Yeah, I was going to add on to what you were saying, Mike, about big names coming over. As we know, FC Cincinnati has just hired Jaap Stam, who Dave might be a little jealous that we've got that guy.
He got ran out of Man United. Yeah, he got ran out of Man United by Alex Ferguson. Although I will say that, good old FC Cincinnati, I noticed that, or I read that in the original press release, they had a picture of Jaap Stam, and it was actually a picture of somebody else.
Yes.
Oops.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's that Jean-Luc Picard look. A lot of people have it.
The other guy apparently did look a lot like Jaap Stam.
Yeah. And Stam said that had happened to him several times. Probably not in a press release for his hiring, but he had been mistaken for that particular. It was another coach, actually.
Well, let's just hope that Dutchman's better than the Dutchman that we've had at the helm here the last year and a half. Because it has been pretty. I mean, Atlanta United's performance in the MLS back thing was just clear that, when you have your best game against New York Red Bulls, and then that's your best game, and then you play even worse against Cincinnati. We had 2 red cards, I think, in that game. And then somehow the Columbus game was even worse. It was really it was amazing to watch, given the fact that we do have talent, just how Atlanta, it was clear that there was no rudder. There was no leadership on the field, which is a proxy of there's no coaching leadership. And so the decision of them getting rid of Frank de Boer was not a surprise to me at all. I mean,
I want to talk about that first game. I mean, we can talk about the second and third game that they're just saying, but
second, please.
Let's skip that one. But I think there was a moment that epitomizes the De Boer era, which is the goal that we conceded, in the 1-0 game, right? So we have the ball. Escobar wins the ball. He's bringing the ball out of the back, and in a very aggressive way, right? And we had so both
Bello and Lennon were gunning up.
Both
right?
outside backs, Lennon and Bello, take off up the field. Okay, so two things happen, right? So Lennon basically runs his defender almost right into Escobar. Okay. And Bello, who's on the far side of the field, on the left side of the field, because Escobar was coming up sort of the right side of the field, right, was running up the field and had not a chance in a million of getting the ball, right? So when Escobar lost the ball, unfortunately, right, we were left with only the two center backs. And what had happened was one of the center backs had come over. Oh my goodness. But one of the center backs had come over.
Miles, I don't know which.
Miles came over to cover for Lennon, who had gone up the field, right? And then they left Meza all alone. And he was there with basically two players, and it was a midfielder who ran out of the middle for an easy through ball, right? But my point on that play is, okay, you've already got a back, Escobar, running with the ball up the field, right? Which is nice. He's taking the space. He's going to start a counter or whatever. Why in the world do you need the two outside backs going forward just mindlessly, right? I mean, it's one thing to have one of the backs go forward, and make a run with the ball or without the ball, right? But Lennon wasn't helping. He just crowding the space. And Bello, all he was going to do up there was just stand and wait, right? So if Lennon were to have a little bit of patience and could see, well, maybe if Escobar gets in trouble, he makes an overlap run and helps him. And Bello should have been staying in the back, right, and have no business running up the field. And even if we move the ball into the middle and we need Bello to run forward, he has all that room to run into instead of being there already standing by himself and having no momentum, right? So my point about that is, okay, De Boer sort of claims that he was committed to offense. And he says, look, my outside backs were going forward or whatever. But when your outside backs are going forward so mindlessly, and it doesn't help the offense at all, you only want people sacrificing defenders going forward if it's going to lead to goals. If it just leads to you being vulnerable in the back, it's useless, right? And for all of the times when they just been flying up the field on the outside, we scored 0 goals. They didn't create any chances, right? So that to me is the epitome of it. It's players going forward without any purpose.
All right. Thanks for listening. If anybody actually made it this far in the podcast, we'd love to hear your feedback on Twitter at ATL on Fire. And tell your friends to subscribe. We are on iTunes, Google Play, and really any sort of podcast platform that you're on.